Good morning and good afternoon to everybody, depending on where you are in Europe. My name is Mark. I am head of CTV at Azerion, and today I am very happy to be moderating the panel CTV 2026 Strategic Forecasts from Industry Leaders, where they will be sharing bold predictions, strategic insights, and data-driven forecasts for the future of CTV. And without further ado, we will introduce each of the panelists in alphabetical order. So, James, if you would like to go first.
Hi everyone, I am James Grierson, content partner lead at Samsung Ads. So for the last 6 months or so, my day-to-day has revolved around ensuring our app partners, the likes of ITVX, Channel 4 and BBC iPlayer, acquire and retain as many users as possible. Prior to that specialization, I was the agency lead across Omnicom Media Group and Havas for over 4 years. I have a pretty good experience across the full spectrum of different advertisers and the way they've been utilizing CTV.
Thank you, James. And next to Rob.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Rob Gedge and I work at WPP Media Solutions, formerly known as Group of Nexus, and I'm a solutions manager for all things video.
Thank you, Rob. And next to Sarah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Lewis. So I'm Global VP of CTV at Show Heroes. So essentially I work across all of our markets, Europe, LATAM, APAC and US, working with every team to, forward our solutions, whether it comes to product, supply, demand, marketing, do a bit of everything.
Thank you, Sarah. And finally to Thomas.
Hello everyone, Thomas Bernal, based out of Paris. I lead go-to-market for Augury. Historically, we've sold, let's say, unique targeting methodologies on, specifically mobile and web channels. And actually, one of my roles this year was to lead kind of the expansion into CTV. So tons of fun learnings along the way. I'm happy to share that today.
Thank you very much, everybody. And just to everybody who's watching today, we really do encourage to send through some questions because we'll look to try and leave a few minutes at the end for any questions that you might ask. And actually, coming off of the previous panel, which was fantastic, I'm sure we'll dive into some of those topics a little bit more. And actually quite interesting coming from that poll that most people see that CTV will take over as one of the biggest mediums, if not continue to grow as a niche. And I actually think that's a really good place to start when we go into 2026 to really understand actually from different parts of the industry, what is top of the wish list. So the first question that I pose to our panelists are, what is the top of the wish list for media buyers right now? And actually, what is top of the wish list for media sellers? And Rob, with the WPP background, it would be great to go to you first to get more of a buy-side view.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to keep it brief. So of course, advertisers are always going to want cheaper CPMs, but aside from that, we're always looking for ways to better kind of measure and control reach and frequency when you're activating across various publishers and platforms. So actually, I'd put that kind of the top of the media buyers wish list for us here at WPP.
Thank you, Rob. And then we'll actually go straight to the other side. And James, I guess more from a sell-side perspective, what do you see as top of your wish list as you go into 2026?
So from the media sellers perspective, my personal opinion, we're basically simply keen to see a bit more synergy from agencies and how they're planning and buying CTV inventory internally. Recently, we have seen some really positive steps towards this. One example is some AV teams now buying home screen inventory. But too often, unfortunately, there's just multiple different teams and contacts that you need to speak to in order for the full potential of CTV opportunities to be realized.
Great. Thank you very much. And then I guess we'll go to Sarah and Thomas next. And in particular, Sarah, having more of that holistic view coming from Show Heroes, where you have views on both the buy side and the sell side. I guess taking into account the points from Rob and James, what side are you going to take a bit more on? What do you see as the wish list for buyers or sellers?
I think definitely for the buy side, it's transparency around content. I think that's something that we have really found really very difficult. I think everyone has, right, found difficult in the industry when it comes to CTV is really understanding the content, understanding where you're delivering and being able to optimize on that, and consistency as well. So not just getting those signals, not just being able to understand it, but it coming in consistent, standardized way so that you can actually utilize it properly. I think that's on a bit both sides for sure on that.
Great. And then Thomas, to yourself as well. Obviously, you were mentioning Ogre is coming into the CTV space a bit more, coming in with fresher eyes and a fresher perspective. What do you see as that wish list? Is it something similar that you've heard already, or is there something really in particular from a buy or from a sell side that you think really should be top of mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what Sarah mentioned from a buyer's side, irrespective of the channel that you're buying against, transparency and let's say like lower complexity, lower, you know, complexity to enter a market is always going to be important. I think what's unique about CTV in the current situation is, it has, I think, outgrown its original niche, right? So now you're getting into the higher level of expectations or standards that Barrier is going to have when it's, not just 2 or 3% of your media spend. And so effectively, I think it's the general ask they would have of any channels, but heightened scrutiny just because of the growing share, right?
Yeah, sure. Okay. And so already there's a few themes coming out of this. There's a big theme on transparency. There's also a big theme on standards that was touched on from the previous panel as well. I guess I will leave this open for somebody to answer, but based on that transparency piece, when talking about content, or particularly Sarah, you mentioned about content, where is that transparency at the moment? And really, what level of detail do we need to get to? Is it just within the ad pod itself? Is it actually by program? Because you've got people coming in from one space, from TV and from digital. So it'd be great to kind of flesh out a bit more where it is and kind of delve into where it should be.
We're definitely further along than we were. I think it's taken a bit longer than everyone expected to get to this point. We definitely have more understanding of content genres, of overall content themes. But we're not at the point where it's really being able to target against specific programs, and I think that is something that anyone coming from a TV buying background is quite used to. And then you've got digital side. CTV is this convergence of the two, the TV experience with the digital enablement. One of the beauties of that is this opportunity for so much more targeting. But there are things that are needed for that, right? And that's understanding of the content. You can see in other markets like the US where that really, really granular level is, I think, slightly more advanced. But we've definitely had a lot of progress, and we can use, specific tools. Like we have our own Semantic Hero AI to take what we are getting, better understand it, standardize it, and make it more targetable. But the more we can ingest, the better that will get. So I think it's just about being, especially on publisher side, being open to, being able to provide more in-depth metadata, which is just going to benefit everyone, I think.
Yeah, sure. And James, I can just see you're about to jump in, so please feel free.
I was just going to share because that demand for us passing data in the bid has been echoed throughout the landscape for quite a while now, and we have personally made quite big strides in that. We are now passing channel name, content genre, and content category, which we're really pleased with. The only thing that we deem really precious, we keep to ourselves for the moment at least, is our ACR data. So I think there are strides in that right direction.
Perfect. I think this actually leads quite well onto the next question when we're talking about signals being passed through, when we're talking about also the wish list. And actually, it was mentioned in the panel earlier, but we'll broaden the question now a bit more, that as the market is progressing and there's a lot of conversation, will 2026 be the year of performance CTV? Because there is a lot in the market about it at the moment. Or will it continue to be seen as predominantly an awareness-driving medium? And I think, Sarah, we'll go to you first to really understand from your background and a show hero's perspective if you think it will be on performance or if you just think it will continue to be awareness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to say the year of anything because we did have the year of mobile for like 10 years. So, but look, in the past year, there's been a big growth in performance campaigns. CTV has lower barriers to entry for clients who are more performance focused. We know that viewers take action after seeing CTV as well, right? There's lots of studies around this. We've done it as well. They search, they go on the website, everything afterwards. They take action. They consciously remember buying off the back of seeing a CTV ad. And as we saw in the previous panel, there's been a huge amount of progression in the way we can measure. So I think that is something that is definitely going to grow. I still do think at the core of it, CTV is TV. And I still think there is so much impact on brand. And I think we have to remember that. So I think it has to be a little bit of both. I don't think we will go down the pure DR route. I don't think that is on the cards, because I think there is still so much impact that CTV has, being a TV medium, that we can't necessarily measure, these cultural moments, this big impact, these messages staying with you. But of course, there is the opportunity now to move more into the performance space, especially with things like more shoppable formats, more interactivity. Again, we had this in the previous panel, but there's a big opportunity there. I just think we always have to bear in mind that extra value you were getting as well, and not become so focused on like conversions that we lose sight of that. So there's a bit of both. I'm sitting on the fence, and I don't like doing that, but I think there is value to both.
Okay, thank you very much. Rob, I think coming to yourself from, again, that kind of buy side, that WPP perspective, when you're looking at CTV campaigns, when you have a brief come through and you have clients come through with the KPIs that they're looking for, how do you see CTV fitting in? Do you see it as a bigger performance driver going into next year, or do you still think it's going to continue to be on that awareness piece?
Yeah, I mean, actually touching on a couple of similar points to Sarah, but of course, CTV is used a lot for awareness, and I think it is brilliant at that. But the interesting thing about CTV over linear TV is obviously the additional capabilities that we have for targeting and creative. So that extra like addressability and the extra precision from the digital world give it some real advantages driving performance. One of the exciting things we actually have going on at the moment at WPP is open intelligence. And that is a large marketing model which is trained to predict audience response and performance across, well, all channels, but including CTV. So that uses signals that aren't personally identifiable, so things like behavior and context and location, which means it's a kind of privacy by design way of getting consumer insights. So making the most of that data actually makes us better at driving the outcomes like, online sales, in-store sales, footfall. But also I think creative is pretty essential to maximizing performance, as Sarah touched on there. So, there's a lot more options than linear TV. So things like, interactive formats, shoppable formats, especially dynamic creative optimization. So you can do some cool things that aren't possible with linear TV. So things like showing the nearest store location to help drive footfall, or even, instantly purchasing a product through the TV without having to navigate through a browser. So I think obviously CTV kind of maintains that premium environment and the ability to story tell from linear TV. But by being strategic with the data and the creative, you can kind of combine it with those best aspects of digital to better improve performance.
Yeah, sure. And just to touch on that a bit more, we're talking about the content, talking about the targeting as well. Just from your point of view, from a WPP perspective, potentially, what's more important? Is it the content piece when it comes to maybe becoming more performance? Is it the targeting piece, or is it just a mix of both and actually just that wider ecosystem?
Oh, I think it's everything. Yeah, all of that plus more, right? So I think that's the thing about there is a lot of data sources out there, and sometimes we're not always necessarily receiving them all from a DSP at the moment. But when we look to go to sometimes like activate more from the supply side, then we get access to a hell of a lot more kind of signals that we might not otherwise be able to. So that gives us the kind of breadth across the whole ecosystem, like you touched on there, to really be able to kind of utilize this data to optimize.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And James, coming to you, when you have agencies, when you have clients coming to you with their briefs, are you seeing a balance on whether they want performance, whether they want awareness? Does it lean one way or the other?
Yeah, it totally depends on the advertiser and the client, right? So at Samsung Ads, we've actually been delivering both performance and awareness campaigns since the business first started. We basically launched with two main products. The first was app lift, so driving CTV app usage for the likes of Apple TV, Amazon Prime Video, which is completely performance focused, obviously, as we can deterministically track end-to-end attribution from ad exposure all the way through to app open. And the second was driving incremental reach on linear buys for the likes of Lego and Adobe, which is all centered around increased brand awareness. So demand of both services was there from the very start, and it's been growing ever since. So moving into 2026, there's a lot of talk. We've heard it today, earlier panels about performance of shoppable ad formats, gamified shop ad formats, as well as planners getting savvy with MMM attribution modeling. We even have our own first-party mobile app data now that we're starting to use to measure deterministic ROI. So not only measuring CTV app engagement, but now potentially looking to mobile app installs and mobile usage as a performance metric, which that could basically open up performance CTV to any client that has a mobile app. Having said all that, let's not forget there are still many, many brands who are yet to unlock the benefits of driving optimal TV reach using CTV data. And funnily, I suppose, even those kind of campaigns can be measured with brand lift studies, right? Which kind of blurs the line between performance and awareness measurement, which is almost branding performance anyway.
Great, thank you. Really detailed answer there. And as we move into the next question, I think there's been a few hints of it, but no one's actually mentioned the term AI yet. So we can always have to have a panel with the mention of AI. And as CTV is growing, with it going more into the digital space, with it kind of taking advantage of all those digital pros, how do you see AI influencing content creation, ad targeting, and viewer engagement as we move into 2026? And I think, Thomas, we'll come to you first to get an understanding of your point on it and potentially what Ogre is looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's going to be an onus, or I guess like a willingness to effectively be even more targeted, even more precise, even more, outcome driven to some extent, thanks to AI. I think like in any AI discussion, it comes down to how much data are you willing to feed your AI to even do anything good, right? I think James mentioned to some extent, the willingness of the publisher side to retain some of its most precious data, right? At the end of the day, I always look at it like, yes, there is a massive promise, and I think CTV has been, legitimately so writing this promise of it's TV, but you can do so many things more. But ultimately, the way I look at it is, where will the balance or the equilibrium between supply and demand side land? Just to give you an anecdote, a few years back, I was on the retail media side, and obviously retail media and CTV were the hottest thing, or arguably still, fairly hot. And so the natural inclination of any buyer was, hey, what can I do with both, right? This would be kind of my ultimate dream. Okay, how can I get these channels or these kind of budgets to intersect? And the reality is it was impossible back then to do a deal involving retail media data and the CTV channel, because both sides legitimately so felt that they were strong enough on their own. I think we're now getting to the point where, as CTV specifically as a channel, you've reached, or you're beginning to reach, the extent of your own legitimacy, and you've kind of gotten your fair share of attention and your fair share of budget. So now, you need to begin competing with others on slightly different terms than your own, right? And so I think to that extent, or kind of to illustrate that, to me, the Amazon and Netflix deal was a very, very interesting one in terms of where the market might be heading. And, to your AI question, and to come back to that, I think the more data, and specifically external data as well, specifically outcome data, we'll see get into the mix, the more it will be legitimate for AI to be able to bring value beyond just the pure awareness angle, on which at this point, the publishers all have all of that data.
Thank you. And just to touch on one of the points you mentioned there, it sounds like, are you saying as the market's progressing, within the space, it's really about trying to find that extra edge around whether it's the offering or whether it's the outcomes? Would you agree or disagree that AI then really the focus is more on efficiencies and being able to drive that extra incremental across anything that's done within the CTV space?
Yeah, I mean, specifically for the clients that we address, and, obviously I'm going to preach for my own house here, but, obviously targeting capacity and precision and transparency, like, it is very much a huge point of concern, right? Or at least a huge point of opportunity, you could say, given that today there's still a healthy amount of data that doesn't come through in the bid requests, or it's just, the space is too fragmented to have a kind of a clear view of what's happening. So I think that's always going to be relevant. But I think if you want to go beyond that, or once that problem is solved, it's okay, it might still be a brand channel primarily. How is it affecting in some shape or form business outcomes? I think to do that, okay, now you need to have not only visibility into that transparency from a targeting standpoint, but you need to begin infusing your whole ecosystem and your whole way of buying with slightly different data that by design is external, right? I think the shoppable ads will be great, but to me, they're more kind of a first foray into the topic as opposed to the long-term solution, right? I think we can go much further out, but that implies, various actors being willing to share the cake, right? Share the value that's extracted, share the profit, and to effectively let advertisers optimize towards that.
Thank you. And James, coming to yourself, you mentioned earlier on in terms of the wish list about marketplaces and streamlining. I guess from your perspective, more from that sell side perspective, OEM perspective, like how do you see the rise of AI and automation kind of impacting everything CTV, but also the business?
Yeah, so we have actually already adopted AI technology in a product suite that we call Smart Outcomes. It basically enables us to sift through the billions of different data points we have on over 10 million TVs you have in the UK alone, for example, and we use that in order to find audiences that will drive the most favorable outcomes for buyers depending on their KPIs, of course. But whilst this is a relatively elementary use of machine learning, during the next phase, I see AI actually being utilized far more heavily on the creative and content curation side, actually. So one example could be AI-led content curation for our users. So analyzing our users' TV consumption habits to make educated guesses in recommending similar content that they are likely to enjoy. And then somewhat, maybe a little bit further down the line, it may allow for things like hyper-personalized AI ads to be served in real time with the right compliance in place, of course. But these ads could be utilized blending behavioral, contextual, geodata to optimize that relevancy, I suppose, and subsequently outcomes, which is all, really exciting stuff.
And Rob, coming to yourself, you mentioned earlier about WPP intelligence. There's a big play there at the moment for machine learning and AI. From your perspective and from what you're seeing, where do you think the biggest impact then is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, I mean, I touched on that open intelligence earlier, and I think that is going to be, a big game changer for us. But from a consumer's perspective, I'm also quite interested in the content side of things. So, I think, in recent years, we've seen pretty huge growth of YouTube on CTV. And YouTube obviously hosts quite a lot of different types of video, but a big portion of that is, content creators and influencers. And they're often, quite small teams. They might not have access to the same resources that, a big film and TV studio might have. So we know, Gen AI for video at the moment isn't perfect, but it has improved quite a lot in recent years. I'm sure you've seen some of the videos. And the signs are that, it will continue to improve going forward. So I think by harnessing this technology, it can be quite a powerful tool for the creators to make content that they might not otherwise be able to. But of course, on the other side, that comes with some concerns around, privacy and copyright when you don't really know the data sets that are being fed into these models and you don't really know the guardrails that are in place. And actually, I think a good example of this is Bryan Cranston, the actor from Breaking Bad. He was in the news recently talking about how he's kind of lost control of his likeness after people using OpenAI were able to create videos using his voice and his likeness without his consent. And actually, it's not just a consideration for the smaller creators, but big film and TV studios are under financial pressure, and AI represents an opportunity for them to kind of reduce some of their costs. But that's actually one of the reasons why one of the big actors unions in the States went on strike fairly recently, a couple of years ago maybe, to try and prevent the replacement of actors on set with AI. So I think, AI is likely to have an influence on the content that we're consuming on our TVs, but I think caution also needs to be, exercised over how that's being used.
Very, very detailed answer. And Sarah, coming to yourself, I know show heroes have a big background from a content perspective. Do you see it as something similar as well?
Yeah, I was going to say, so, content is very close to our hearts. We've got our studios team who are content creators, right? I think there's two parts to AI, right? So what we have to remember is that tasks that don't need empathy, so something like data collection or something like targeting and optimization, AI can, take over those tasks because it takes out that human bias, right? And it actually makes it more efficient. When it comes to content creation, there are some brilliant tasks that it can augment and make us more efficient, right? So storyboarding, editing, all these kinds of things. I think, though, we have to still value, we have to really value original content. We have to really value authenticity, empathy, things that connect with audiences. And audiences need to be able to see or relate to content as well, right? So I think we have this balance and this responsibility as well to make sure that, yes, we are using AI to make things efficient, we're using it for the opportunity that it is, but we are maintaining that authenticity and originality, because without that, you will end up churning out the same thing again and again that looks very uncanny valley, no matter how perfect and how many fingers the person in the ad has. And you will get, I think there will be this churn of everything goes to AI created, and the audience will lose engagement and attention from that. And then we'll go back to, slightly more authentic and more original stories being produced. So I think we just really have a responsibility to maintain that human element, maintain empathy within the content that we create, so that we can speak to audiences, and keep producing things that are exciting and that people want to watch on their TVs. TV watching, we watch long form content. We sit back in the evening, we watch hours of content a day. So I think, AI is a huge opportunity, and we're using it in lots of different ways, right? But if we're looking specifically at content creation, we have this balance to maintain, and we have to make sure we value creative people as well. Like our studios team are amazing. They come up with ideas I would never think of. And I think as an industry, we can kind of forget that sometimes, maybe not value it as much as we should. So I think we really have to keep that balance. We have a responsibility to our audiences as well, to keep them engaged and keep producing content that they are interested in and is genuine to them. But AI can do so much more as well. This personalization, I think in the previous panel they mentioned Audio Stack that we work with as well, this being able to personalize the audio to your nearest location, right? So that's something that would have been extremely manual and annoying to do without AI. I think that's the perfect use of AI, right? Because it's making that extra personalization, actually speaking to the user more, but doing it in an efficient way. There's a huge amount that we can do with it. We just have to be very responsible with it, I think.
Great, thank you. And it sounds like, a big theme coming from that question is predominantly focusing on content, which is really good to hear, because a lot of the time within the industry, it's about the targeting and it's about actually reaching the consumer. But it really sounds like then that there needs to be authenticity, control over the content itself, because then if we lose the engagement of the consumers who are watching, then as an industry, as advertisers, everybody loses out. So it's really starting with that consumer piece, and then it's moving through the different stages to the point where it gets to the advertising point. So really good overviews, fantastic. And just in the interest of time, I'll ask one final question before going to some of the questions that are coming through from the audience, and really going straight back to the title of this panel is around the predictions. So, James, coming to you first, what's your number one prediction for CTV in 2026, and why you think so?
Okay, I'm excited for this one, as I believe 2026 is going to be the year that the value of the home screen advertising is finally realized. CTV is still typically considered as in-stream audiovisual formats in and around VOD and or fast inventory, which is brilliant. But in my opinion, the real value is actually in the home screen, especially when we consider the audience fragmentation we're seeing, the plethora of different content apps and services our users now have access to. For us at Samsung, we're super lucky, as it doesn't really matter how many different apps are available, as that TV home screen acts as that stable constant across any and all changes in TV consumption behavior. It's that first and last guaranteed commercial touch point. I could go on about it forever and ever. But we recently actually had great success with a very well-known luxury car brand, where we did roadblock home screen takeovers in around the men's Six Nations. And after that campaign, we actually did a study with MTM that found that 66% of users who saw that home screen ad actually associated the car brand with the tournament, even though they actually had no official affiliation. So yeah, I think in 2026, more and more advertisers are going to wake up to that potential. And funnily enough, a lot of that waking up comes with clients see these activities on their own TVs at home and then give us a call, which is fantastic.
Thank you, James. And Thomas, coming to yourself next, what is your number one prediction for 2026 in CTV and why?
Somewhat of a self-serving prophecy, but I think, coming back to the earlier point, the proverbial walls of the gardens coming down ever so slightly, right? Effectively, the publisher side seeing the value of letting other players in, whether it's for modeling and targeting, whether it's for measurement, and effectively sharing that value. Yeah.
Thank you. And Sarah, to yourself next, your number one prediction?
Yeah, mine is the convergence of retail media and CTV. So obviously Thomas mentioned earlier, two big buzzwords coming together. But there is so much value in this. I've heard a lot of the TV screen is the new storefront, the shoppability, these people taking action, being able to actually use retail data, like we use Currys data in UK, MediaMarkt in Germany, being able to target people who are in market for a specific product and show them a high impact, highly engaging, interactive ad that they can then go to another screen and purchase. I think that's huge. And I think that opportunity will really start to be realized next year.
Thank you very much. And finally, to Rob, what is your number one prediction and why?
Yeah, so in short, it's around the role that CTV will have to play in cross-channel activation. So, cross-channel, omni-channel, they're big topics in the industry at the moment. And obviously with TV, the benefits are kind of intuitive, right? It's big screen, it's audible, completed in full. It's often surrounded by high quality content and sometimes there's some co-viewing. So for the most part, the same can be said for CTV. And that type of environment really allows for opportunities for storytelling within the ad and creating emotional resonance and an ad that lodges in the memory in a way that might be more difficult to achieve with some of the other channels. So it's a high impact medium and it serves an outsized performance, and that actually has a halo effect on the kind of rest of a cross-channel strategy. So there's a study on this where WPP collaborated with ThinkBox across a range of brands and categories, and they found a synergy where the impact of ads on TV actually increased the impact of ads in the rest of a cross-channel strategy by a significant amount. So when you see a CTV ad, that's kind of the hero ad helping you to build familiarity with the campaign, which is boosting the performance of the rest of the campaign. So, when you see a display ad that contains the same imagery or an audio ad that contains the same messaging, it resonates more because you've already been familiarized with the campaign. So yeah, my prediction is that CTV will act as an accelerator for cross-channel performance and elevate the impact of the rest of the channels in the mix.
Great prediction and great predictions all around from everybody. Thank you. I can see Marie-Claire, you've come back on. I appreciate we've just run out of time. I don't know if I've seen a couple of questions come through from the audience. I don't know if we've got 1 minute, 2 minutes to answer one.
Let's do one. Go on. You choose.
Let's do one. Okay. So one question's come through that how is CTV currently being bought? Are there many different ways, and if so, what do you see the best way? So I'm gonna twist that question slightly just to make it relevant to the 2026 piece. We'll leave it open to very quick answers, but essentially, how is it being bought at the moment as a holistic view, and into 2026, do you see any changes to that, or will it continue to be the same? So I will leave it open to somebody if they want to pitch in on the answer.
Ever so quickly, it's being bought via managed service and programmatically via programmatic guaranteed and PMPs. Traditionally, we are seeing more programmatic demand coming in, as I think I mentioned earlier with curated agency marketplaces. I personally see the shift going towards more of a programmatic access in the future.
Great. And then time just for one more answer from anybody.
Yeah, I mean, agree. It's being bought programmatically and IO, but I would say OMP is potential as well. In the US, you see a huge OMP marketplace that you don't see in Europe right now, but I think there is potential for that to grow. And as for what is the best way to buy it, whatever way works for you. I think there's part of the beauty of CTV is that it is more flexible. So yeah, whatever way works for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate we're out of time. So thank you, James. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Thomas, for joining. Thanks to everybody for attending and listening. And I will pass back over to Mary Claire.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Mark.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you to that great panel and for all of the insight and forecasting for predictions for CTV. I think lots of what I took away is there's so much opportunity in connected TV, whether it's through home screen ads or the collaboration between retail media and connected TV. I think lots and lots of opportunity, and it's kind of from an IAB Europe perspective, it's no coincidence that I lead both our retail media and our connected TV work streams, because we do see lots of opportunity in both of those areas, and in particular both of those areas coming together. So as we wrap up today's event, just like to take a moment just to thank everyone, our speakers, moderators, and of course all of our members and our attendees. Your engagement and the insights shared today and contributions make it both a valuable and thought-provoking and hopefully insightful session for everyone. Hopefully it gave you all fresh perspectives, some practical takeaways, and also some inspiration as we move towards 2026. So the conversations and lots of the things that have been brought up in today's event will continue in our working groups, particularly our Connected TV working group. And so if you are already a member, please feel free to engage and lean in. And if you're not, again, please feel free to reach out to us and discuss those opportunities. And just a quick reminder, today's event has been recorded. And so we'll be sharing the recording and all of the key takeaways on our website in the coming days. So if you've missed anything or you want to share it or receive those insights, they will be available very soon. So we do have a few upcoming events just to make you all aware of, and you can use the QR code on the screen to get more information and to register. All of our events, our virtual events, are free to attend, so feel free to sign up. So first one we have coming up in just a couple of weeks is on responsible influencer marketing, an online webinar in which we're going to discuss, how policymakers, regulators cooperate with the industry on this topic. Then we have our second virtual programmatic day of 2025 on the 26th of November. This is a long-running event that we've been hosting for many years now, and we talk everything programmatic, whether it's transparency, sell-side decisioning, lots of different topics to be discussed there. Then the next day we have our virtual Mix Awards Europe ceremony. So this is our creativity awards competition. So if you've entered or your clients have entered, partners have entered, please log in and see who the winners are. And then finally, we're going to close the year with our State of the Nation webinar with our Chief Economist, Daniel Knapp. And I expect he's going to be talking lots about what's happened this year in the digital advertising ecosystem, but also what we can expect with the year ahead, and lots of great insights. And finally, just to ask everyone, if you haven't already, to take 10 minutes or so to participate in our Attitudes to Digital Advertising survey. This is a kind of benchmark of where we are in our industry, what's driving growth, what's challenging investment, different buying models, etc. So please do take 10 minutes if you haven't already to share your insights. And then finally, in terms of trainings, we have a half-day online course on environmental sustainability in digital advertising. We have 2 dates that you can choose from, either the 20th of November, which is actually a US-friendly start time, or on the 27th of November, which is geared towards a Europe time zone. And with that, finally, just to thank everyone for tuning in today, for being with us. We appreciate your time. Thank you again to all of our great moderators and speakers, and we will hopefully see all of you soon. Thank you very much.